ونسلم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولقد همت به وهم بها لولا أن رأى برهان ربه كذلك لنصرف عنه السوء والفحشاء إنه من عبادنا المخلصين. And indeed, she did desire him, and he would have inclined to her desire had he not seen the evidence of his Lord. Thus it was that we might turn away from him evil and illegal sexual relationship. Surely he was one of our chosen and guided ones, guided slaves. So this particular ayah explains how, when she was trying to seduce Yusuf alayhi salam, Zulaykha or Ra'il, she intended for him. So we come to that, what it means that she intended and Yusuf alayhi salam intended. We'll cover that in a second. But before that, this topic of isma, the infallibility of Prophet. This is aqidah of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, that all the prophets by consensus are free from major sin. They cannot go wrong. They cannot commit, as I said, major sin, but also they would not even do these major sins unknowingly or forgetfully. It's impossible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has protected them, obviously in this particular ayah, from people, but also they are ma'soom. And there are many evidence for that. And that will be discussed in our Aqidah class, inshallah ta'ala. But know that that's the Aqidah of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, that the prophets are infallible. They would not make mistakes. There is a possibility that they may make a small slip here and there. But even that is deferred upon. There's a difference of opinion whether a prophet can make a very minor slip. But even if they did, so those who say it is a possibility, the others say it is not even possible. But those who say it's possible, even they say that they cannot be left on this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would intervene and correct it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would let them only do that much so as to make a point that we are the one in charge of. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is free from every weaknesses. As a human being, the prophets can slip a bit here and there, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would hold them. And that is why we read this hadith where the dua of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been mentioned, that Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum bi rahmatika astaghith aslih li sha'ni kullah wa la takilni ila nafsi tarfata 'ayn. O Hayy, O Qayyum, I implore you, I seek your help and support with your mercy. برحمتك أستغيث أصلح لي شأني كله. Sort all my problems out, all my affairs, put them right. ولا تكلني, and do not leave me. ولا تكلني إلى نفسي, to myself, طرفة عين, even for a blink of an eye. Even for that moment, do not leave me. Because Allah's protection is there for the prophets all the time. And that is why when you read Quran, there are certain episodes and incidences where a prophet would say something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would counter it by a strong word, sometimes a mild reprimand, sometimes it's just a simple, nice saying to say that don't do that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would do that to make sure that they do not continue in that slip. Even the slip is not allowed to be carried on with those prophets. So the prophets cannot make major mistakes, but even the minor slips, that is something that even if they did once or twice, that would be removed straight away. They will be corrected straight away. So the word hum is used here, hum, and it means two things. As Allama Qurtubi would mention, hum means two things. One is you get determined to do something, and to have the determination to do something, your resolve, firm resolve to do some action. When you're dedicated, I'm going to do that no matter what. That is a sin, and you'll be accountable for that. And then other meaning of hum is when you just get a thought, just a simple thought crossing your mind. That's it. Or it comes as a glimpse in your heart. Just feel like, okay, am I? Like, you know, the example is when you're fasting on a hot day and someone just puts a very cold water right in front of you. You look at that for a second, it feels like, wow, like, you know, you want to have that. But it's just a thought that crosses your heart or crosses your mind, but you do not, which is beyond your control, by the way, it's involuntary. And you do not dwell on that. You just let it go. That is okay. La yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wus'aha. This is beyond our control. So there's no accountability for this. So this is what was happening with the two. So the first one was وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ. She intended, and laqad means verily, most definitely she did towards Yusuf alayhi salam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, rather than having, you know, they both did it in one word, no, he didn't do it that way. It's like وَهَمَّ بِهَا, without laqad, وَهَمَّ بِهَا. And he got this inclination as well. It's a glimpse, just a quick thought that crossed him that he is intending coming close to him with that desire. He intended her. Now the different explanation. Was it for this relationship that she was seducing him for? Or was it that Yusuf alayhi salam actually wanted to go and tell her off or push her away? You know, when someone comes to you and then you because he was trying to seduce in different ways, he intended to push her away. So when you intend that person, so that's one way a group of Mufassirun would say Yusuf alayhi salam was. Then he stopped, realizing that if I did something, if I even, you know, pushed her, she would make that as an example or evidence in her favor and cause me more trouble. But anyway, the first type of hum obviously is a problem. Yes, if you have the first type of hum, like firm resolve to do something wrong, and yet you do not do that, and you leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, I want to do, but I repent sincerely. I'm not going to do that. Ya Allah, forgive me. Then you get a reward for that. You get rewarded for leaving the sin, because leaving the sin is a good deed. So Zaliqa had the first one, while Yusuf alayhi salam had the second type. This is why neither the dual form of the verb hamma is used, nor the double emphasis laqad used for Yusuf alayhi salam, unlike it was used for Zaliqa. So different Mufassirun then mention different things. As Allah says, لَوْلَا أَرَّهَا بُرْهَانَ رَبِّي. Had it not been Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed him a sign, or the true literal meaning would be, لَوْلَا, had it not been that he saw a sign of his Lord, a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a sign from his master. So what is that sign? So there's different Mufassirun have given different explanation. Abdullah ibn Abbas, the companion, Sa'id ibn Jubair, he's one of the Tabi'een, and Mujahid is a Tabi'i, Muhammad ibn Sirin is a Tabi'i, Hassan Basri, they all are Tabi'un, and the, you know, first generation students of Sahaba. They say it was the Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salam appeared right in front of Yusuf alayhi salam. At that point, when he had this thought crossing his mind, he saw his father standing there and looking at him. According to some narration, patted on his chest. Some say he just, you know, pushed his chest. Some say he was putting his finger in his mouth in astonishment. Some say he was warning him, saying, "What are you doing? Ignore it." Second group of scholars say it was the face of Aziz of Misr appeared. You could see like my master who actually supported me, helped me up to this age. How could I be, as he said before, that my master has done fantastic job with me and treated me very nicely. How could I go against him? So his face appeared before him. And another group of scholars say he got the ayat of Quran written right in front of him on the wall. وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا, do not come close to zina. إِنَّهُ فَاحِشَةٌ وَسَاءَ سَبِيلًا. So those words were put on the wall. So you could hear that, you could read that, sorry. So he stopped. Abu Nu'aym al-Asfahani, he wrote this in Hilyatul Awliya. He said, what Zulaykha did, Zulaykha or Zulaykha, she had an idol there in the room, in the chamber. So she got a piece of cloth and covered the idol, saying that I do not want to be seen by my idol God in this bad state. So Yusuf al-Islam realized and he said, Allah deserves far more respect and honor, and I should be showing that modesty towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is ever watching. Another group of scholars say Yusuf al-Islam realized just by being the prophet, because it was just a thought that crossed his mind, and he could just realize that how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has protected me. I shouldn't be going against anything. So it's a very, various different reasoning, but to be honest, we don't need to go through any of those. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him a sign that held him with his knowledge, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the previous few lines, that we have taught him, we have guided him, we have raised him in such a way that he knew it. As a prophet, he would know that this is wrong, so he wouldn't do that. So that story is obviously very, very powerful story where a lady, now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way he said, just go back a bit to look at that ayat again, how it starts. Oh, that was from the last one. We did that last week. The one who he was in the house of started seducing him, rather than saying Zulaykha seduced him. The Imra Aziz seduced him, because what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is hinting there is that for all the youth, you have a very good example of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. You are young and you want to have that sexual desires fulfilled, and yet Yusuf alayhi salam was raised in that house, and this lady had done a lot of favors, and she was beautiful, and the men of the house is out, and she's the one demanding it. There was nothing that would stop Yusuf alayhi salam for committing that act, and yet he did it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we find ourselves in way easier situation when we commit sins. We have uswa in the life of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. There was a young boy whose body would emanate beautiful fragrance. They would come to madrasa classes, and the teacher and the students, they could see that, mashallah, but he was generally a poor guy. They said, how come? So some students actually complained, yeah, Ustad, can you just guide him not to waste a lot of money on perfumes when he's that poor? So the teacher said, yeah, I've noticed that as well. It's very odd, isn't it? But he's so poor that sometimes we feel that he didn't even have a morsel or two to keep himself straight, keep his back straight. How come he afford that? Maybe he's wasting his money on that. Let me just gently guide him on this and ask him. So he inquired in private, oh my son, what's happening? Why do you waste? He said, yeah, Ustad, I don't have any perfume. I never wear any perfume. I don't have any. I can't afford that. So yes, so we thought, and so how come? said, yeah, Ustaz, if you force me, then I need to tell you. And he was about like 1920. He had to relate his story. And the story was, so one day I was working and they asked me to do some labor work in a household, a rich family. The men wasn't there, but the women were. So this particular, there was the lady of the house. She asked me to do something in her room, in her bedroom. I started working there. Then she locked the door and she asked me to fulfill her needs. And obviously, I had like I didn't even think about that. And I was so shocked what to do. And I knew that I can't say anything because she said that I would shout that you are approaching me with bad intentions. So it would become a big problem. And I had to have those few, you know, coins that I could take for my sibling and my elderly mother to be fed with that. So I couldn't afford any such thing, but I kept thinking and I made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, help me out. Help me out. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me this idea. So I said to the lady, okay, can I just use the bathroom for a minute before we do whatever you asked me to? She said, yeah, why not? Let's go. So he went to the toilet and he defecated there and took his poo and spread on his body at different places, in the clothes, in the body. And he came out. The lady got so abhorred by that, completely shocked by what he has done. He said, are you crazy? Get out of my sight. I can't even look at you. He's so smelling badly. Get out. And then the boy then saved himself by doing that. That's a big thing. And then she just got him outside from the back door and he ran out, climbed the wall, and then there was a small pond somewhere, took, a big jump in there, cleaned his clothes, and then wore it back, and then out he came. So since that time, my body has been perfumed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because this man has kept himself so chaste and he didn't even bother what he's doing. That was the only thing available to him, and he saved himself from committing sin. This is what people do. And he wasn't a prophet. So for the youth and for even adults, all of us, we need to think about how many times we commit sin in the spur of moment when we're completely overwhelmed by our sentiments, ideas, thoughts, cravings, lust. We must think about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be looking at us and smiling, saying, MashaAllah, my slave is being chaste and modest for my sake. How much love we earn from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how much goodness we earn from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a lot to think about. May Allah give us tawfiq, inshallah ta'ala. But anyway, واستبق الباب وقدت قميصه من دبر وألف يا سيدها لدى الباب قالت ما جزاء من أراد بأهلك سوءا إلا أن يسجن أو عذاب أليم. So they raised with one another to the door, and she tore his shirt from the back. They both found her lord, that is her husband, at the door. She said, what is the recompense, a punishment for him who intended an evil design against your wife, except that he be put in prison or a painful torment? Now she is the one blaming Yusuf alayhi salam and suggesting a punishment as well, because obviously she had love for Yusuf alayhi salam. She didn't want him to be killed or being removed from the area. So going to prison for some time, punishment done, come back out and all sorted, or we try again at some other point. So she still had that love, obviously, but the audacity that people have is so strange. When you're caught, the nafs try to counter it with some, all the crazy idea without thinking, because you're desperately in need of saving yourself and your fame, your name, your whatever honor you have. And in that, you actually go way beyond to cause trouble and transgression You oppress the weak. And that's quite common for people to do. And it's so big a thing. That is why a haram would always lead you into committing something way bigger without realization. She didn't manage to get that desire fulfilled, and yet she caused even bigger harm. Well, that was major sin, but this is major sin as well, causing an innocent person, slandering him. And what they do then, sometimes just to win the argument, get the favor from people who play victim. We try to suggest that, you know what, oh, see, I've been raising him. I've done a lot for him. Here he is, keeping an eye on me. So what a bad man he is. You're literally tarnishing their character. That's so bad, so bad. قال هي راودتني عن نفسي وشهد شاهد من أهلها إن كان قميصه قد من قبل فصدقت وهو من الكاذبين. So Yusuf alayhi salam then couldn't stop. He had to then intervene. It was she that sought to seduce me. And a witness of her household bore witness, saying that if it be that his shirt is torn from the front, then her tale is true and he is a liar. So who was this shahid? Who was this witness? And you could look at those shahid. According to some narration, it was a young boy from the family of Zulaykha, from her side, a nephew of someone. And then in difficult times, there were about 5 small children. According to one narration, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned 3 small kids. They spoke in cradle. And if you look at all other ahadith together, you find about 5 people who did it, maybe more. Maryam alayhi salam, as you know, so Isa alayhi salam was the witness for her chastity. Jurayj was a very pious monk during the time of, or after the time of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam for his people. And there was a time when he was praying, he was offering his prayers, his mom called. And he was thinking, shall I listen to my mom or shall I continue with my prayer? My Lord or my mom? And he kept thinking and he decided to continue with the prayer and go back to mom after he finished his prayer. And there was nothing wrong with that. It's just that his mom couldn't tolerate that. And this was just a lesson to be learned, that you shouldn't upset your mom no matter what. But anyway, so the mom then said, okay, if you're not listening, I pray that you do not die until you see the faces of the beautiful girls. Means you encounter those women, and tend to mean streetwise women, not so modest women, or just women in the society who go out rather than just household wives. But anyway, so in those days. And so this happened. There was a girl, most beautiful lady. She tried to seduce Jurayj. The Jurayj didn't accept, and she knew that I can get anyone on my side, but this man didn't. So she got pregnant through a woodcutter and blamed the baby when the baby was born to Jurayj. So they came and they destroyed the hermit. The king commanded that Jurayj be dragged and should be killed in front of people. How could he use his power, like his status of being a monk, into this, and a major sin? So they dragged him. When he walked past, these beautiful girls were standing on the side, and he started looking at them. He smiled, and then they dragged him. So he said, do you know what is it? What is the charge? He said, I don't know. Why this is all happening? He said, the charge is that you have fathered a baby, illegitimate child, and you've committed this fornication or adultery with this girl. So you're supposed to be stoned or lashed for this. He said, so where is the baby? The baby is there in the room. So they took him to the room, and then he said, oh baby, who is your father? The baby has just been born, really very small baby. He mentioned, my father is that shepherd, cowherd, or someone. And they got so impressed by him and his, piety and his connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they obviously let him free, and they asked him, we want to build your house of gold, we can rebuild it with silver. He said, no, no, I just want it to the way it was. Please rebuild the way it was. I don't need anything else. And then they said, okay, at least tell us, why were you smiling? So the king asked, and he said, I just reminded myself of my mother's curse or the dua. And mashallah, even for someone of that level, that even the small baby would come as a witness to support him, yet he had to go through the dua the mom made. So don't upset your mothers and your father likewise. Your parents are very, very important. So never ever cause them any hurt, which is like, not Sharia wise. Obviously, if you've done something which is Sharia based and they're still upset, some parents do get upset with the children, even praying 5 times a day or having beard, and they get upset, but you can't help them. But again, if they did it for other than something which is commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you're not justified in that, then you would face it. The punishment is there. May Allah save us all. Musa alayhi salam, there was a girl, baby girl. She was a lady. There was for this girl who used to look after the daughter of Pharaoh, and there was a lady who used to comb her hair. So she had the comb fall off. So she said, Bismillah, in the name of Allah, and then she took it. The daughter of Pharaoh said, how did you say that? Who is Allah? And she explained and said, don't you worship my dad? She said, no, I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So she complained to father. The father got her and the family, one after the other. All the children killed, 5 children. So 4 got killed. The 5th one was a very small baby, and the mom was a little bit reluctant to renounce her religion, but the baby then supported. So that baby spoke as well. Oh, mom, don't worry, don't leave your faith for this man. And then Ashab al-Ukhdud, the people of Trench, the ditches where they fill with fire and then threw them all in that. That was the baby boy of the lady. She was a bit reluctant to jump. He said, either accept me as God or jump in this one. They all accepted the faith of the young boy. So that the man and the king, that man who was a young boy, he went to learn sorcery, magic. On her way, he found a nice priest and monk, and he learned deen from that monk. When the king would ask, where were you? The sorcerer, the royal sorcerer was trying to teach this intelligent boy magic, and he on his way was learning deen. So that priest made him the next priest in line. He taught him a lot of good deeds and knowledge. So he became a very good person, a practicing Muslim at that time. And so finally they had him killed, as he explained. If you wanted to kill me, you can't kill me if you threw me. They tried before to throw him off the cliff, but he would come back. All the others would be killed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through earthquake or shakes. They would take him to tie him with a big stone with his body and threw him in the middle of the sea, and yet they all were drowned with a big flood. And he came walking back, and they said, you know what, you can't kill me. There's one way you can kill me if you really want to. And what is that? And they said, just gather all the people, and I will tell you how. Gathered all the people around, and he was standing in the middle. He said, take this arrow and shoot at me. Say, in the name of the Lord of this young boy, and then throw it to my heart straight on my head. And they aimed, and as they did, the boy died as a shaheed. But his whole idea was to convey the message of true faith. So everyone around him, all the people, they accepted Islam. So then the king got them all, given a choice. Either you accept me as your God and leave your faith, apostatize from there, otherwise you will all be put in this ditch filled with fire. And they opted to go into fire. There's a small baby with a mum who was literally in his lap. He said, "Don't worry about me." She was only a little bit reluctant with the baby. The baby said, "Don't worry about me, mum. You can jump." And they jumped. That surah, Buruj, if you read the story, there's be there in detail. I just skipped it very, briefly, touched upon that. And Yusuf al-Islam, as you know, about the small child. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help people. And then when kana qamisu qudda min duburin fakadhabat wa huwa min as-sadiqin. But if it be that his shirt is torn from the back, then she has told a lie and he is speaking the truth. فلما رأى قميصه قد من دبر قال إنه من كيدكن إن كيدكن عظيم. So when her husband saw Yusuf al-Islam's shirt was torn at the back, the husband said, "Surely it is a plot of you women. Certainly, mighty is your plot. إن كيدكن عظيم." So Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala narrated that Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is reported to have said that the guile of women is stronger than the guile of shaitan, because about the guile of the shaitan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said it is weak. Inna kayda shaitani kana da'ifa. And about the guile of women, it was said that great is the guile of you, O women. But how do we understand that? The women understand it when shaitan tries to do something, it is very easy to sort it out through seeking protection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when it comes to women, we do not see our wives, our family members, female friends, or family members as someone negative, or we love them and we treat them, our family, our siblings, if they are our sisters or moms or wives or daughters, so all our family member, we treat them like ourselves, like our own family. So we do not see that they're plotting against us. So that is why, and they're, the way they approach you is with some sentiments, with their nice background to it, which is that they've been looking after you for a long, long time. They provide you with food. So you are actually indebted with their niceties, with their mercies, with their compassion, with their care, with a lot of sacrifice. So whatever they've done as a background becomes too much of a thing that you cannot see through. So if they plot something with their cunning idea, and not all of them are like this, there are only few who might be doing that, and there are many men like that as well. So it's not a bad thing against women, or all the men are so biased. Obviously not. More corruption is created or done by men than women. But obviously, those women who try to get involved in such practices, when they plan, then that plan is really a good, cunning plan. It is very difficult to understand that. Most of the time, it is difficult to sort it out, or to undo it. Why? As I said, because you trust them, and you've been pampered for a long time by them. So it is very difficult to come out and say something. And the minute you say, "Oh," so they start blackmailing you emotionally by crying, "Oh, I'm going to leave the house. Okay, you do all by yourself. I would leave you and the children." So that becomes a big thing for men. They go, "No, I didn't mean it." And then they start apologizing, and then things get sorted out. Like this lady, she did whatever she did, and husband could see very clearly that she was at fault, and yet she started playing victim. And this is quite common for women to do, and you never know when are they truly hurt and they're crying for that reason, and when they're plotting and being cunning there. And that's a fantastic skill they have, which men tend to find very difficult to judge between when it is true and it is not. And men by nature have a lot of love and inclination towards their women. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the women have been made so much attractive for the men. So men tends to let go of so many things for the love of their wives. So So someone who is in that position, is very easy for them to abuse it if they plan. So as I said, but they're very, very beautiful, nice, practicing good wives and sisters, and they're so good. They do not plot, and majority don't. In modern time, maybe things are getting slightly worse. It is worse for both sides. Men likewise are behaving in such a way that it doesn't fit a Rujuliya character. So Yusuf أعرض عن هذا واستغفري لذنبك إنك كنت من الخاطئين. Oh Yusuf, turn away from this woman, from this episode, sorry. Oh lady, oh woman, ask forgiveness for your sin. Verily you were of the sinful. So you've committed the sin. Stay away. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. And the Aziz al-Misr, he stayed composed and calm despite the gravity of the situation. This was a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from Yusuf alayhi salam. He saved Yusuf alayhi salam from the blame and then the wrath of Aziz. He could have killed, when you can't go anywhere, you just do that. But then this man has seen Yusuf alayhi salam and his character for the last 7, 8, 10 years, however many years. And he knew that Yusuf couldn't have done that. And he encouraged his wife to apologize to Yusuf alayhi salam. So if you even unknowingly or knowingly oppress someone, we must try and ask forgiveness. We should put aside our egos and arrogance. Anyway, so that's that. So here we see how beautifully Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped Yusuf alayhi salam despite being in a very tough situation. MashaAllah. We move on to the next lesson.